Hello, I'm Graham from Three Blokes in the Pub, and today I'm with Professor Thom Brooks of Durham University, and he's head of law here. And you will know a
Dreams
lot.
can come true.
Well, obviously, we're going to talk about Strictly and whether Stacey was the best answer. No, we're going to talk about Brexit. Of course, we're going to talk about Brexit. So you're coming towards Brexit from an interesting angle because you're not British. Mm-hmm. This is your home now, but you were born in Connecticut?
Not originally British. Passed my test and got my passport now. Thank you, Theresa May, for agreeing my citizenship papers. But I'm originally from the United States, from a wonderful little city called New Haven in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
I went from one northeast to the other.
Okay, right. Bit of a change.
As you do. Bit less snow here.
Bit less snow
here than in the other northeast I'm from.
So whenever I come up to Durham from Liverpool, I'm like, it's so much colder up here, even though it's just more north.
You've not seen 5 feet of snow in a few days. I have.
No.
Yeah, it's a different level of snow. Moving on.
Brexit.
Blizzards.
So I've got sort of three main things that I want to talk about the legal implications of Brexit in three different ways. The first one is about the referendum itself, because, look, I'm a layman. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trained in law. But as far as I'm aware, if this referendum had been legally binding, if it had been a local election, if it had been a general election, because of all of the irregularities, just putting it mildly, in the campaigning, it would have been declared null and void and they would have had to rerun it. Is that correct?
Well, certainly, normally, when there are serious campaign finance violations and so on, irregularities that are illegal during a campaign, it would be not atypical for the election to be called null and void for that member of parliament and maybe to run that again. And you certainly had that in this case with Brexit, right? So you had people who got the maximum fine from the Electoral Commission, £20,000, more than one person. It seems more than one organization involved. So you had multiple things going on here that were very serious, and you might, in a normal election, that might normally happen.
Yeah.
But what about this referendum? Well, a couple things seem different about the referendum. One is that its legal status was advisory. So that means that the referendum, despite, yes, the Prime Minister David Cameron said, what the people want, the people will get, and all this other kind of jazz, that was kind of political stuff. That was rhetoric. That wasn't necessarily lying to the people. He was intending that these things are going to happen, and I have no doubt that he kind of...
someone else can do it. He did resign the next day.
He didn't mean to do it himself, but he meant that someone was going to do it.
Someone will help me out.
Someone else was going to sort this mess he created out. But it was advisory, and so it meant that Parliament, of course, was under enormous political pressure. You might think some type of moral pressure. If most of the people think it's what we should do, then members of Parliament will feel really compelled to do something. But they weren't kind of forced by gunpoint. I mean, Parliament could have done something else.
Yeah.
It could not have done this, and it chose to do this. And I think that's what kind of changes it a little bit, that even though there might have been, there were campaign finance violations that had been uncovered of the kind I've described that were at least naughty.
No, it's more
illegal.
than naughty. There's Aaron Banks who can't tell us where his money came from.
Sure.
You've got was it £600,000 they overspent? So that's a 10% overspend for a 2% vote swing. And the way that it was set up as well, I'm interested in the legality of it having a Scottish referendum in which 16 and 17-year-olds were allowed to vote, and then having a Brexit referendum in which they weren't.
And British citizens living abroad were denied a vote as well.
And EU citizens living here, but Commonwealth citizens could vote. So if you're a resident here, but you were from Tuvalu on the other side of the world, you could vote in that referendum. But if you had lived here for 40 years, and you just happened to be born in Spain or France, but you were, to all intents and purposes, British, but never bothered to get a British passport, you didn't get a vote. You didn't get a say in your future. And they reckon there's about 3 million people that's been affected by that.
Hey, look, I think everything about the referendum was done very badly, and I think it starts with David Cameron trying to basically kill off UKIP for political party advantage. He was upset, no doubt, in having a coalition government. He had wanted to run the whole thing by himself. He didn't want this guy called Nick Clegg being his deputy and having to kind of do different deals with Liberal Democrats. He wanted to have things by himself. His big worry was that the Labour Party was strong, and that in terms of its vote share, and that they were losing votes to UKIP, and this is a way of killing that off. And so he kind of did this kind of gamble for the country, in my view, in order to win some political advantage for him. And he never really thought through the consequences. I dare say, not least like the Lisbon Treaty, didn't quite think through all the ways in which a country might leave the European Union. As to what would happen if he lost. I think they gave really no consideration to what would happen if they lost.
Is there anything we can do about it? I mean, is there anything Parliament can do about it? Is there anything the Labour Party can do about it? Is there anything that we as private citizens can do about it?
Well, I think looking back on things to realise that if you're going to have a referendum, quite frankly, I mean, I don't live in Scotland. I'm not from Scotland. I don't have particularly strong views about what people want to do, they can do. I was against the Scotland's independence at the time. But I think that what I liked a lot about how that referendum was conducted, and there was some things, there are other things to be said about that referendum too, but one positive thing about it was the Scottish government say about Alex Salmond and company what one might. But there was a clear paper, Scotland's feature. It was about 200 pages long. We knew what they intended to do about the pound. Keep it, the Queen. Keep it, immigration. Not have the tens of thousands. There was not going to be a citizenship test. We had a sense about what they wanted. Whether or not they were going to deliver on it, the world was going to find out if they weren't. But we had a sense of what exactly they were on about, what they wanted to do. And I had respect for that. When I spoke to one of the leaders of one of the Leave groups during the referendum campaign, and I asked, so why aren't you guys doing this during the referendum campaign right now when it was happening? Because it's very confusing. You have on the one hand Boris and Gove saying one thing, you've got Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage saying something else. You got other donuts popping up like George Galloway saying something different.
Being promised to everybody, wasn't it?
Everything, exactly right. And I said it's all over the place. And so, what are we going to get? Well, everyone's saying all this stuff, and just about none of them are in government. Just about no one's in a position of doing anything about it. And it all sounded like a lot of hot air. And this person said to me, he said, "Look, Tom, we learned from Scotland. We learned that in Scotland, when people talked about independence and freedom, people like that. But when you got into the detail, people might be divided over that, or that could be unpicked. So with Brexit,
there was no detail.
We won't give detail.
Just slogans.
We'll give slogans because if they did detail, then it would be unpicked. But they'd be found to be wrong.
Is there anything we can do about it? Because I personally have been financially impacted by Brexit because the Brexit vote made the pound go down by 15%. A lot of the money that I make when I'm doing my travel writing, which is my day job, which I'd like to get back to, thank you very much, is in US dollars. So I've been paid less because the conversion, my wages haven't changed. So can I sue someone? Can I take anyone to court and say, hang on, you've messed this up on an advisory referendum in which illegality went on, which has been said by the Electoral Commission. What can I do?
Well, I think there's a few things to potentially be done, and certainly something to be done in the immediate future by Parliament. So Parliament is split. Certainly no clear majority for any particular way forward. No one seems to like Theresa May's plan except for Theresa May herself, and sometimes it's not even clear she likes it. Everyone seems to be opposed to it. Certainly the country is. And the more the country seems to see Theresa May and her plan, the less they like her, as they did during the snap election, and the less they like this plan. And the only thing that's kind of keeping anybody in Parliament from picking up her cabinet and throwing them out physically out of 10 Downing Street is this thought, this potential fear that, the will of the people went a certain way on Leave. It would upset people, and they're very wary about causing any kind of concern, upset to what they think are about half or a bit more than half of the country. Now, I think if Parliament can't come to a view, there's a simple way forward, and here's my 1.5 minute or less plan, and it's simply to have a referendum. Why a referendum? not a referendum like before, not going back to, remain as is versus leave whatever leave means. We had, as Theresa May eloquently put it at the beginning of her premiership, she was asked, what does her Brexit mean? Brexit means Brexit. I thought that was very eloquently put because everyone had a different view about what the stupid thing was.
So now the only person who thought that was eloquent. Everyone else thought it was stupid because it's been repeated by Theresa May and by her ministers and by her civil servants in these important high-level meetings in Europe and at home.
I was actually happy to be quoted by the Daily Mail. Not only is the professor who thinks that the referendum will happen, but that that leaving the European Union is not going to happen. But I was also happy to be quoted for saying that Brexit means Brexit is like saying it's all gobbledygook. And seeing that word in big letters was a real personal highlight.
In the future, Brexit will mean a tremendous cock-up of national proportions, won't it? I mean, it's just...
Well, I think at the moment, I think that's certainly the case, and it's hard to see anything going well. Yeah. So if the Parliament can't come to a view, and it's really kind of stuck, the Prime Minister at the moment seems to be wanting to hold this vote about a week before Britain must decide whether or not to trigger things. So following Monday, they need to say that we're out, and if we don't on the 21st, that means the 20th of March, it'll be pushed back to the 30th, to April, to some other time. And she's trying to kind of put this gun to the head. Look, the public voted a certain way. However suspect, however clouded in mystery or conspiracy that vote might have been, and
Russian interference.
And you don't want to mess with this. Everyone is what she seems to be playing at. I think that's absolutely terrible and putting her interest above the country. But the way forward is if Parliament can't decide to have a referendum. We had Brexit means Brexit, but now we know what Brexit means.
Yeah.
We have nearly 600 pages that spells it out. Now, facts it seems most people don't like it. But hey, who wants to listen to people in Parliament? If they can't vote for a deal, then it should come to the people. Either Theresa May's deal will remain. Why those two things? Because now we know what Brexit means. Now we've got a Brexit plan.
Yeah.
And some people say, hey, Tom, we think you got this wrong. There should be one or two other options in there that I'm missing out. One is just having a vote for, I don't know, we don't like this deal, some other deal. It's like, no. Those leave critics who say we shouldn't be having referendums all the time until we get the result that we want or the elites want. That's exactly why we shouldn't be having a referendum every time there might be someone else who says they can have another deal, whoever the political leader is.
It can't be fantasy, can it? It's got to be something solid that we can say, this is what we want to do and this will be the consequence of it. If we stay in the EU, things won't be so bad, things won't get particularly worse. If we leave, there's a 4% knock to the economy.
Exactly right.
If we get a good trade deal with America and Paraguay.
Which is not going to happen with America, and I'll explain why in a second. But the other thing I'd just say is that no deal was never an option. It was never an option because David Davis, former Brexit secretary, said that no deal was not going to happen because German automakers wouldn't allow Angela Merkel to see Britain walk away. Turns out that was wrong. Liam Fox said that deals are going to be so easy after Brexit. The International Trade Secretary is still in cabinet. He's not yet resigned. That on the midnight of the 20th of March, he was going to sign at least 40 new free trade deals. Now, none of these things have happened. Now, put aside whether or not these things are factually true and they're factually wrong. Put that to one side. No deal was never there. I would also split a Brexit vote. I did give advice to the Electoral Commission on how to get that referendum right. And I think it's May's seal will remain. And it should be put to the people. If the people say, look, we like May's deal more, then God bless her. I think it would be advisory, but it would not be legally binding, but it would be a very strong push for MPs to back that deal and give that legs. And we would be able to draw a line. A second referendum would actually draw a line under things and allow the country to move forward. Well, if it actually went remain, then we also draw a line under that. Short of a general election, short of a general election, there is no mandate, and everyone in Brussels is hearing this, by the way. There is no mandate to reopen talks with anybody.
No. And that's people say, you keep wanting to vote until you get the result you want, and it just seems mad to me for people to say having a vote, giving the people a vote would be undemocratic. And it's like that's an oxymoron.
The reason,
how does that
absolutely
even
right.
work?
I think it's not undemocratic at all. I mean, those who are worrying about it being undemocratic, Nigel Farage? He's lost election to be a member of Parliament, 7 times at least? What's going on with Farage and Boris is they know, other than a few days during the referendum, Remain was always in the lead. And Remain, like Hillary Clinton in the presidential election, the stronger support for them nationally was weaker support. Because a lot of people thought the gap was so big for them, their vote didn't really matter and they weren't going to turn out. And that's a fault of the electorate, right? You know, I think democracies do get, to some degree,
I'm not blaming the electorate for that. The Remain campaign was bloody awful.
Sure,
it was a big problem.
I think lots of elections could be handled a lot better.
Headed up by David Cameron, for heaven's sake.
I think a lot of things could be done a lot better.
Yeah.
But that said, I think that democracies get what democracies want, and people know the importance of voting, and people don't want to vote for whatever reason, or they don't feel really compelled for one side. Yes, the campaign has got a lot to answer for, but elections are decided by those who turn up, those who vote, and that's what happened. And so I think that's but and obviously Leave support was a lot stronger.
This is where I diverge a lot from my local MP and a lot of people's members of parliament is that they if we do have another referendum and there's no cheating, I will respect the results. If we vote to take Theresa May's deal and we leave, I'll go, okay, I accept that. I will continue to campaign to get back into the EU, but I won't be saying, that the original vote, there was a problem with it. The 2016 vote, there were so many problems with it from a legal point of view. The fact that, Vote Leave lied, they cheated. They probably took money from a hostile foreign power in order to give to a private company that stole people's data on Facebook and then targeted them with ads that were not true, and not only not true, not credited for what they're supposed to be. So if you run for being an MP, if you put out any literature, you have to put on it that it's for a general election, that you're the MP, and your address, and who printed it, or who made it.
And there's a lot of people here who are connected to that, are implicated in this, in the different reports we've seen, that presumably are profiting from the currency dropping and betting against the pound.
I will never respect that referendum result because it was that one side cheated illegally. I mean, it's not just telling lies here. We're talking they actually broke electoral law.
Sure, I mean,
so what my question is is who do we sue and how do we sue them?
Well,
we've got thousands of people watching these videos. We could all get together, chip in a tenner each, take them to court. How do we do it?
I think what we do is this. And here's the plea. Here's the plea for what we can do next. So one of the things I say to a lot of people in audiences exercised about the result and the shenanigans, we'll call them, that happened around that. Is I say
so diplomatic.
I try.
Naughtiness, shenanigans.
When you're dean of a law school, these things come more naturally. I say this, that when Donald Trump won the presidency, in the way in which he won it, Republicans in Washington had no reason at all to cause a problem, to add to suspicions. Trump largely ran against them. Republicans controlled all three branches of government. They controlled everything in Congress, the Supreme Court, the White House.
Still couldn't get rid of Obamacare, though, could you, Trump?
There's lots of other things he won't be able to, or build his wall. There are lots of other things he won't be able to do.
Isn't the government shutting down on Friday?
Perhaps, but he had total control of the Republicans. And Washington, D.C., however partisan things are right now between the different parties, as an American, it is so much worse, so much more partisan and ugly back home than it is here. So putting all that together, it is to the credit, I'm going to give credit to the Republicans in Congress who said, you know what, there's a big question mark over what's going on here. We got no reason to open things up. But you know what? The rule of law matters more than any one of us. This democracy matters more than any one of us. And some are persuaded that if they had a Mueller-like investigation, special prosecutor, go in and snuff things out, it might be the case. They see that a lot of this is rumor, innuendo, or minor fines, minor criminality that would either show that nothing was wrong, or that there was minor things wrong by folks who had nothing to do with the president or nothing to do with the party, or if things were really, things are bubbling up out of the sick bag, that was all kind of identified for what it was.
What a way
and I think this is true, and I think it is frankly shameful of the current government that they have lacked the leadership, they have lacked the nous, They've lacked the common sense. They've lacked the dedication of the rule of law. They've lacked the respect for the public, the democracy, in doing anything like this.
Yeah.
Serious questions. This is a serious point. I'm sorry to change the tenor of the conversation.
But if they are not respecting the rule of law, surely me, as a private citizen who's thousands of pounds down because of what the government have done, can I sue them? Can I take them to court and say, I bought this thing off you, and not only did it not work, you burnt my house down?
Well, I think one of the things that will have to happen at the moment is to help the case, sadly, would probably be, I mean, this is where you'll get different bits of legal advice. I mean, some people will say, look, you could go after the donuts who are behind the bad stuff right now, but how would you do it? You wouldn't be able to necessarily go to criminal court because that would be a CPS thing involving the police.
But isn't a national crime agency investigating Aaron Banks at the moment?
They are at the moment, but they need to investigate them, and so
but weren't they also put off for 2 years by Theresa May?
I think they were. And I think that it would be very helpful for viewers to get in touch with the National Crime Agency and provide any helpful information they can to law enforcement, which they should always do, because we should always do that kind of stuff. That said, I think that would be working for the
call to
immediate
arms,
future.
guys. Give the National Crime Agency a call and say, hey, listen, I hear that Aaron Banks he can't tell us where his money came from.
Well, I think the other side of it is if Brexit does happen, I'm doubtful it will. Yeah. But if it does, and it shows people had a material loss on the basis of some wrongful criminal activity that led up to that decision to do that, you have some kind of murky things here about could you really sue Parliament over things? I don't think people can. But I think that those that might have unlawfully tried to influence or do something like that to Parliament that led to people having material losses, there might be something in that for people to pursue. But that will be a story we won't know until we get there. But I don't think we will. I'm optimistic.
You don't think that it's going to happen?
I don't think it'll be Brexit.
I'm quite pessimistic, to be honest with you. In all the sort of travelling that I've done over the last few months, speaking to people, I can't believe the stupidity of our government and the people in charge, fussing ahead with this. But there's no stopping them. There's
Theresa May, for reasons I will not yet understand until I one day sit down with her, which may never happen, seems to think that as someone who supported Remain in winning a leadership in a party bitterly divided over Europe, that she had to kind of cross the line into Leave and sound a bit stronger and have even more red lines that she ever needed to have to look tough, sufficiently tough for Leave, to get that support from her party, to drive things forward, to deliver on promises she did not make, she must know are not deliverable. They're not going to be delivered by her plan. Thought about, I'm going to end free movement. Yeah, I don't know, after the plan is over, maybe that'll happen, but not during it. It's bewildering to me why she thinks she can do what she's doing.
What I can see happening is we get to the deadline, which I think is January the 21st, for having the meaningful vote.
Yeah.
And by then, the situation will be hair deal or no Brexit. And Jeremy Corbyn wants Brexit. We have a leader of the opposition who actively wants this to happen.
Well, I don't think he's for... So there's the difference between wanting Brexit...
Are we going to talk about what's in Jeremy Corbyn's head now?
Well, I speak to Jeremy. I don't think he's at all for Brexit, anything, any form of Brexit. I mean, the traditional criticism of Jeremy about his being critical of the European Union is...
voting against membership in 1975.
And a lot of the concern is that he thought... The commentary has been that he's been against this, or others like him have been against this.
He did
because it was too neoliberal, or so on and so forth.
He did say that migrants were driving down wages. This was the headline that was printed in the Daily Mail and gave all of the people who hate immigrants because they're foreign, everything that they need. And you've got a Labour leader for whom 87% of Jews polled by the Jewish Chronicle or the Jewish Telegraph back in September thought that he was anti-Semitic.
Well, I think there's something very worrying about that story that concerns me an awful lot. I'm from a part of the United States that has a large Jewish community. Yeah. I lived here not too far from one as well, and that does concern me an awful lot. But I do think that his view on Brexit, or others who have been critical of the EU at that time, is that there's more workers' rights, there's more union involvement, there's a greater kind of social democracy that we could do. We can argue all day long as to how you get from
all
A to
the
B.
social democracies that I want to emulate are in Europe. Maybe New Zealand, that would be one example of a country where you go, okay, well, they do things, but they're a tiny country, it's only 4.7 million.
But I think the essential point is that when it comes to, say, workers' rights, or trade union representation, or rights for women and other things, I think these are all areas where Jeremy and Keir Starmer, the shadow Brexit secretary, and others, whatever the other confusions, whatever the other criticisms many people have from all sides of the aisle, that they've been pretty kind of clear that they don't see, whatever Brexit they go for, it will not be Brexit that does any harm to that. We can argue all day long, is it possible to have a Brexit that does those things?
No, I don't think we can argue all day long.
Graham, I share that view.
No.
I can't see for myself how Brexit can not cause a problem for environmental standards and other things. I can't see it myself. So that's why I was campaigning for Remain. So some might call my view a Romoner, and I've got the views I do. But I don't have that view about Jeremy. And I think when it comes to immigration, as somebody who does, as I do, advise Labour on immigration policy, my conversations with him and Diane Abb and others have been very positive about immigration, and I have to say far more positive than it's been in years on immigration and the contribution that we make, and finally the voice of immigrants being listened to by members of Parliament. At least one side of the House is doing it. I wish the other side would do it just once.
But I can see the way he won't nail his colours to the mast. He keeps sort of, every time he's asked about it, he tends to dodge the question. My worry is we get to the meaningful vote and he tells his MPs to abstain. And you only need a quorum of, 30 MPs to get something through?
I strongly doubt that there will be anything on abstaining. And I think, now, if I was to, I'm not discuss this particular issue with him, but I would guess, if I was giving political advice to the leader of Her Majesty's most loyal opposition on Brexit, which I do not, I would guess that what's going on right now...
That'd be nice.
Well, what I'm guessing is going on right now is I think that a lot in the party are stung by the global financial crash. How Labour was seen as being somehow contributing to a global financial crash and its aftermath, even though I find it laughable that the Tories would somehow better regulate banks than Gordon Brown. I mean, it might be that Gordon Brown and Tony Blair could have gone further, and that's fine, and certainly Jeremy Corbyn has a different view about various things than Blair and company. But the thought that the Tories would be more on top of the banks and have more red tape is just laughable. But anyway, I think they got stung on this. And so I think what's going on right now is that they want this collapse of everything around Brexit, which we are seeing unfold in Parliament right now, to be seen as started by the Tories, created by the Tories, caused by the Tories, and collapsing in on the Tories, and letting them set themselves on fire, let them eat their own young. And when the options, I think right now, in kind of a vote of no confidence in the leader, if they stop that then in the government, these are all efforts of kind of ruling out all the different options.
But how can we be in a situation where the Conservative Party is in an absolute free fall, and yet it's still 4 points ahead of Labour in the polls?
Well, there was one poll that had the Tories ahead. There was another one that did not, that had the Labour Party 3 or 4 points ahead.
After the three-line whip
UCOV had a different one.
The activation of Article 50, I, as a Labour member up to that point, I don't think I'll ever vote Labour again. I feel so betrayed. And one of the frustrations that Jason, who's the guy I normally do the Three Blokes with, and I talk about is the fact that we're having to do this. We're just two private citizens who are making these videos and trying to get the facts out there because our politicians aren't doing this, and they should be. And there seems to be in the Labour Party, we've moved away from law here, we're just talking politics, but there seems to be this thing that we want to placate people who have these outrageous views rather than try and educate people in the situation that we're going to be in if we pull out of the EU without a deal or even with a deal. and that education's just not going on. Doesn't seem to be a conversation up here in the north, in the northeast, or in the northwest.
Well, two thoughts. I think one, there's certainly, I think that support for Remain or staying in the European Union is strong. I think the grassroots level activity going on right now, of various private citizens being more involved and active, is a lot greater now, I think, than during the referendum campaign. And I think it's very healthy, and I wish it was there a few years ago. I blame David Cameron for rushing ahead with this, looking at his own timetable and his own legacy and his own political future. And I think, David Cameron, he ranks in my mind, if not the worst prime minister, certainly in my top 5 all time. And I think that this is a mess that he created.
Who was the one who lost the colonies, that Lord North?
Who lost the colonies?
Who lost America? Was that Lord North?
It might have been. There's lots of people I blame for that.
He's my second worst.
Yeah, well, I get upset about that only because of the trouble I had immigrating back. All the things I wouldn't have had to done if we were still part of the UK. But moving on. So I think that's something that, I really kind of put this very squarely at his feet. There's a lot of grassroots stuff going on right now that is terrific, and educating people. But one of the big challenges for that project of educating people about the cost of Brexit, the problems that are going to happen, the preparing for the new world, is what is the new world? I mean, we have Theresa's May plan. She says she's going to get reassurances. There's a political statement that's brief. It might change. It might not. No one really knows still, even, what exactly this is, except that it's not going to be all that different. There's still going to be a customs arrangement of some kind. There's still going to be freedom of movement continuing on for at least the next couple of years. But the status of people long term is unsure of those who come here.
The idea of us
Students will be treated as if they're UK citizens for the next few years still. But will it be reciprocated? It seems it will probably have to be. But how long that will go on, no one knows.
But the idea of us having different standards is laughable. There's European standards, there's American standards, and there's Chinese standards, and that's it. If you're not part of those 3 groups, then we're not going to have our own standards and go, we're going to sell this to the world. And they'll be like, well, does it conform to our standards?
Well, let me make a point. You made a wonderful comment about Donald Trump and the free trade deal, that the Prime Minister wants to have. Of course, Theresa May flew over to D.C. She was the first foreign leader to shake that grubby little hand of Donald Trump. I forget where he puts his little hands, but he went over to go see Donald Trump. And why? It was because she wanted to have this, get this great start for Britain, post-Brexit, trade deals and so on with Donald Trump, and be all chummy and play all that stuff up. I think it's laughable she's going to get in with him. Why would I think that? Well, simple. Donald Trump is, in case you and your viewers don't know this, he is not the world's greatest deal maker. That might be a shock, and some people might need hospitalization.
11
for that. He's had a lot of problems in his life, but
getting £1 million off his father wasn't a problem.
In my view, or more. But Donald Trump, he thinks he's the world's greatest deal maker. That's the important part. He thinks no one does it better than him. And his America First thing isn't just about stopping folks from Mexico or Latin America coming up to the southern border. No. Make America Great was really meant at the Rust Belt, and it was about, as he says, stopping our money going to foreign governments. Why are we propping them up? Why are we helping the Chinese automakers? Why are we helping Europe? Why are we helping others? Why isn't that money staying here in Detroit, making American cars, in Pennsylvania? Why aren't we working in our state and so on? So there's a trade deficit that America has with the United Kingdom. And I can't see this president knowingly, maybe, he makes mistakes, he's not as good as he says, and it might be fooled. That's our best hope. But he is not knowingly going to give Britain a better deal than Britain enjoys at the moment as a member of the European Union.
The European Union is worth over $17 trillion.
Donald Trump wears a hat that says basically, UK ain't getting another dollar, more than they're getting now. And if anything, they're going to, if he's a success in his own, his eyes, we will be getting less. And so the thought of going to a guy like him, thinking this is going to work, and a guy who frankly does think it's a zero-sum game, and economics is not. But he thinks it is a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
He is the wrong person to knock on the door. He's the wrong person to pin your hopes onto right now, and a massive mistake.
The government's own statistical analysis of the economy over the next few years, if we leave it May's deal, is, as I said earlier, 4% knock to the economy. And don't forget, the credit crunch was only a 2% knock, so it's going to be twice as bad if we get a good trade deal with the US, India, China. Good luck with that. No one else has a good trade deal with India. Most of its borders are pretty much closed. There's one border point with Pakistan, which closes at 6 o'clock each night. There's hardly any borders. I don't think any borders open with China, and there's no borders open with Myanmar, with Burma. It just does not get on with its neighbours. You know, I tried to get from Sri Lanka over to India on a cargo ship, and the amount of paperwork I had to do that little journey. It's only 30 miles away.
Well, one of my favorite things, Graham. One of my favorite things about free trade deals is they often involve access of people to your economy. Yes. And so a trade deal with India will surely mean extra visas for Indians or other nationals to come here. Well, it's all about opening up immigration as well.
If the UK does leave the EU, then trade deals for the EU are going to become easier. For instance, the Indian trade deal that has been going on since I think 2012, it's been held up by the British for two reasons. One, Scotch whisky has a tariff of 500% in India. So, you know, there's my fault. British have got a problem with that. And the second one is like you say, it's freedom of movement, allowing people from a country to come over here. And one of the things that sort of I don't get with people who are so against immigration, let's stop immigration, we need to stop people coming from other countries.
Yeah.
You're like, well, first of all, we're an aging population, we need younger people to come on, we're not making enough children ourselves. Would you rather have seasonal migrant workers coming from Romania or people coming over from Poland who come over in their 20s and 30s, having received their full education, and that's been paid for by the Polish government, the Polish taxpayer, come over here, work for a decade or so, and then they go back to Poland to raise their family because their family's there, the mum and dad are there, the extended care community is there, and if you're from Pakistan, if you're from Bangladesh, sorry to say, but if you come over here, you ain't going back. Why would you? go?
Well, I get this a lot as an American, someone from the United States. I'm asked a lot, why am I here? And I joke that, because everyone thinks, your country per capita is more wealthy than where I am. I'm from the New York City wider area. New Haven is an hour away. Why would I leave a place like that to come here? Lots of reasons. The beer tastes better here. I prefer the people. I like the fact that with Parliament, whatever the other problems are in Parliament, I can speak to members of Parliament. I can meet with them. Members of Congress, best of luck unless you can afford to go to some of their dinners where the money is going to their financial contributions. So I think the access, there are lots of things I like about Britain a lot more. And I plan on staying even though I'm from a more wealthy country. I know lots of people who are from South Asia, Pakistan, India, who have gone back. I know people who've gone here and have stayed. I think it does go both ways. I take your point, though. I think most immigrants do tend to return to their home countries. It is a kind of largely a temporary thing, even if they're here in the country for long term. But it is a somewhat mixed picture. It's not just the wealthy Europeans who go back to their wealthy European countries. I think it is a bit of a mixed picture. So they're...
Oh, right, okay.
We'll let bygones be bygones.
Well, I met people in Africa who had worked and trained in Canada and the US and the UK who had gone back to Sierra Leone, gone back to Liberia to help out.
They might be a minority, but
they're taking a massive pay cut to do it. But someone pointed out to me in Côte d'Ivoire that they only worked 4 days a week. Really
but actually, most of us migrate not because, but it's not always about money.
Apartment.
So I thought about, if I make a salary, so Home Secretary thinks if I make a certain salary, £30,000 or more, then that's all right for, we're going to not have a cut in net migration, but we'll say everyone who can make £30,000 or more is okay. That's not really the main driver for a lot of this. I came here to study somewhere abroad. That was cool, interesting, exciting. Then found out, I like it here. And it's not just about money. I can make a lot more money as a dean of an American law school than I can here. So those who think, I've taken a pay cut to be in Britain, to stay here, effectively, given what I do. And so I think that, it's not those in the government, and I think it is a jaundiced, one-sided, narrow-minded, I think petty view that has taken no real serious look at immigrants themselves or spoken immigrants. They said it's all about the Benjamin's baby. It's all about the money that's going to bring people back and forth. And looking at people like me is pound signs. That they're just going to throw some cash. We'll just, come to Durham or Newcastle. And that's what we're like. And we won't have families. They won't be married to anyone. Oh, because they're not allowed, right?
No.
Yeah. We need to be able to sponsor.
Are not allowed to have a foreign spouse.
We've got to sponsor them.
Unless they're earning $18,600 a year. And about 40% of the country is not earning that much. And it's got to be a salaried job as well. It can't be, I'm a freelancer. I can't marry someone who's not, and have them live with me in the UK, who's not from the UK and the EU at the moment. When we leave the EU, it'll be from any other country. And I think this is a part of a concerted effort by certain parties who don't want us to leave the village.
Yeah, sure.
They don't want you to travel. They don't want you to go and go and study abroad. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with right here, where you are?
But also, I think that in a kind of a truly internationally competitive kind of economy country which we operate in, whether or not people like globalization, it has happened. That if you don't have the best talent and that are here at places like Durham University, where we are right now, then we suffer. We fall behind. It's that simple. And actually, we benefit a lot. We had people a couple weeks ago. I had this inspirational woman from Yale Law School here. She had over 200 of her students competing in the midterm elections in Congress. Over 200 of her students in running for Congress. And what happened in the results? Oh, that's right. More women than ever before were elected to Congress. Having people like that circulate here makes here a better place. She went back home. And she's a good friend of mine. She's coming back though. She went back to America. She's all right. But this kind of lifts all ships and inspires people here. And that kind of excellence and best practice and what's going on here, we help each other out. This is really great. It's a very exciting time. Brought together by the internet and so on. This is really great.
It's easier to travel, it's cheaper to travel, it's more
closing
convenient.
doors is so
It's easier
good.
to keep in touch with the folks back home as well than ever before. And so the mechanisms are kind of opening up for us to travel and for us to go and live in other countries more. But the old guard are like, no, I don't like this. But a point that I keep making is that if immigration didn't work, if it was bad for a country, then the US would be the poorest country in the world and North Korea would be the richest. But I don't think it works like that.
And on that note.
So thank you very much. I haven't got through half of the stuff I wanted to talk to you about. So would it be possible to maybe do this again at some point?
I would be thrilled.
Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much, Tom.
Cheers, Graham. Really enjoyed it.
And as always, stop Brexit.